Hello everyone and thanks for joining us today. This video is about enforcing adaptive network control using ICE 2.0 and Fireside Management System. So the ability for Fireside Management System to communicate with ICE using PX Grid, and if a threat is detected on a user or an endpoint, how do we contain that threat by enforcing the right set of policies through ISC? So in this demo, as you can see, a contractor connects to the network, and then based on the policy enforced by IAC, it does have access to the resources. So in this example, the contractor can access contractor portal. Now, if for some reason, if the contractor machine is infected or a threat is detected on that machine, FMC, which is a Fireside Management System, will pick up that threat and it will tell ICE through PX script that, hey, this machine is infected and you need to take an action. As soon as ICE gets that request, ICE can go back and put a new policy onto that machine. Now, the policy could be either enforced using an SGD tag or using an ACL, or it could be simply a VLAN switch to sort of limit access of that machine onto the network. And as soon as ICE gets that information, ICE will go back and instruct the underlying network infrastructure, the network access device, to flip the policy by enforcing, again, a tag or a VLAN or any ACL. Now, once that tag is enforced, next time the packet comes in through your data center firewall or through any of the network access device, as per configured policies in your system, the packets will either be allowed access or denied access. Now let's walk through a demo of how this stuff works. So pretty much this is the home screen for ICE 2.0. I'm going to show you some very simple policies under policy sets. So we have configured these set of policies, and if I expand on authorization policy, all it says is that if the machine is connected to the network, we will just give access to the Active Directory so the contractor or the employee can log in using their credentials. And once they have logged in, based on their tag, they will have access to the resources. So if a contractor logs in through Active Directory using their account, they will have access using the SGD contractor tag, which pretty much allows access to the contractor portal but not to the employee portal. So by the way, these policies are configured for easy wired access feature, but this feature works independent of any of the underlying network connection methods. For example, it could be MAB, it could be your guest network, it could be .1x, or it could be easy wired access as is configured into this demo. So let's turn on the Lifelog, and we can see that as soon as the contractor connected their machine to the network port, they had permitted access to the Active Directory. Now if I go back to the contractor machine and let's try to do Control-Alt-Delete, we'll enter Brad's credential in. Brad is a contractor. And there you go, Brad has logged into the network. Next step, if I open a browser and let's say try to access internet, you can see that we do have internet access. Now let's try to go to the company portal, and we can see that we have access to the company portal. But Brad is a contractor, and if he tries to access the employee portal, you can see that the resources are blocked for Brad to access any of the employee portal, since Brad logged in with contractor credentials. Now if you go back to ICE logs, we can see that as soon as Brad entered his credentials, he got the tag which says SGD contractor clients. Now let's go to some of the PX grid. We'll show you how a Fireside Management System is connected to ISC. So if I go under Administration PX Grid, there are multiple things or systems included in this ICE. For example, we have the WSA appliance, we have some ICE nodes, but if I expand on the Fireside Management System, I can see that it is connected through endpoint protection services, which means that Fireside Management System can talk to ICE and instruct to quarantine or unquarantine an endpoint. So if you open a Fireside Management screen, and in this case, let's go to Actions and Remediation. We'll show you some of the remediation actions that is how ICE is added into Fireside Management System. That you install all these remediation modules. This remediation module will soon be published. It's called PX Script Mitigation Module. And let me click on some details just to show how this works. So once you configure this instance, you can tie back to the policies for these remediation modules. So if I expand on details, I can see that, hey, this module is turned on And also the action names, which are source IP and unquarantined source IP, is tied up with this mitigation action. The next step is look at some correlation policies. So if I click on correlation, I can see there are two policies configured. One is for quarantine and one is for unquarantined. We're more interested in the quarantine use case. If I click on that policy, I can see that SIC is enabled, and anything to do with command and control, for example, downloading a file or malware or something, if that is detected, the endpoint will be marked as a policy violation, and it'll go back and trigger this event to quarantine the endpoint. By the way, there are multiple things that you can do under SourceFire. It's not only the SIC events, there's tons of other stuff that you can configure to take this action. So going back to the endpoint, if I open a browser and try to, let's say, download a file, you saw that the file download stopped, but if I go back to ICE, you can see that SourceFire told ICE to change the policy because it detected that endpoint as infected. And now that endpoint has a new tag called SGT infected, which pretty much limits access to this endpoint on the resources. Now, if I look at the SourceFire logs, I can clearly see that SourceFire took an action quarantine and told ICE to take a mitigation action onto this endpoint. Furthermore, if we go back to ICE and let's look at some TrustSec policies under work centers, we can see that under the matrix, once you have the tag infected, you're pretty much denied access to all the other resources except the remediation portals. And similarly, when you had the contractor tag, you had access to the contractor portal and the internet, but you did not have access to the employee portal. This concludes the demo. Thank you for watching.